She laughed. Of course I'm talking to other guys. I'm not going to limit myself when you're not. The notification sound was what did it. That specific chirp she'd assigned to her work group chat. It went off 11 times during dinner. 11 times while I sat across from her at the Italian place I'd booked 3 weeks in advance for our anniversary. She didn't even look up when she typed her responses. Just smiled at her screen with a warmth she hadn't directed at me in months. I should have known then, but I was still in the business of lying to myself. Let me back up. I'm 31. Meredith is 28. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 8 months. I'm a structural engineer. I design bridges, overpasses, the concrete bones that hold cities together. It requires patience, precision, and an almost obsessive attention to load-bearing calculations. 1 decimal point off and people die. I bring this up because I've started to realize I approach relationships the same way. I calculate. I measure stress points. I reinforce weak areas. I believed that if I just kept doing the math correctly, the structure would hold. Meredith was an event coordinator for a luxury hotel chain. She spent her days surrounded by champagne flutes and fairy lights, making rich people's dreams come true. She was excellent at it. She had this ability to make everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. Everyone except me, apparently. The first crack in the foundation appeared about 6 months before that anniversary dinner. She got promoted to lead coordinator, which meant more events, more late nights, more networking functions I wasn't invited to. It's industry people, she'd say, applying lipstick in the bathroom mirror. You'd be bored out of your mind. Trust me. I'm doing you a favor. I trusted her. That was my job, wasn't it? To trust? The late nights got later. The texts got shorter. The excuses got lazier. Fell asleep at Jessica's. Phone died. Didn't see your message until now. I started to feel like a piece of furniture in my own home. Something she walked past on her way to somewhere more interesting. When I brought it up, she had a script ready. You're being clingy. It's not attractive. I have a demanding career. You knew that when we got together. God. Not everything is about you. I'm allowed to have a life. I cataloged these responses, filed them away, told myself that every couple goes through rough patches, told myself that once the busy season ended, she'd come back to me. I was an engineer building a bridge to nowhere, convinced that if I just kept laying concrete, eventually I'd reach the other side. The anniversary dinner was supposed to be a reset. I'd planned it meticulously. Her favorite restaurant, the corner booth she loved, a vintage Cartier bracelet I'd spent 3 months tracking down because she'd mentioned once, just once, that her grandmother had worn one like it. She showed up 20 minutes late in a dress I'd never seen before. It was green, silk, and cut in a way that made my throat tight. Not because she looked beautiful, which she did, but because I knew instinctively that she hadn't worn it for me. Sorry, she said, sliding into the booth without kissing me. Client emergency. You know how it is. I didn't, actually, but I nodded. Dinner was a performance. She talked about work, about the Henderson wedding that was driving her crazy, about her coworker Dana's divorce, about everything except us. Every time I tried to steer the conversation towards something meaningful, she'd check her phone and lose the thread. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Do you need to get that? I finally asked. It's just the group chat. They're planning Vanessa's birthday thing. She typed something quickly, smirking at the screen. Sorry. You were saying? I wasn't saying anything. That was the problem. I gave her the bracelet over dessert, watched her face carefully as she opened the velvet box. Oh, she said. It's pretty. Pretty. 3 months of searching. Pretty. She put it on, took a photo of her wrist, and posted it to Instagram before I'd finished my coffee. That night, she fell asleep on her side of the bed, phone clutched in her hand, facing away from me. I lay awake until 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, running calculations in my head. The math wasn't working anymore. I found the messages 2 weeks later. I wasn't snooping. I want to be clear about that. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower, and the preview showed on the lock screen. Nate. Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about it. My vision went white at the edges. My hands didn't shake. Engineers don't shake. We assess. We analyze. We determine the extent of the structural damage before we decide whether to repair or demolish. I picked up the phone. I knew her passcode, her mother's birthday. She'd never bothered to hide it from me. The messages loaded. 3 months. 3 months of conversations with someone named Nate. 3 months of, I wish I was with you right now, and he doesn't touch me like you do, and soon, baby. I just need to figure out the logistics. Logistics. She was using my language to plan her exit. There were photos. I didn't look at them closely. I didn't need to. The thumbnails told me everything. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. I finished making my coffee. I sat down at the kitchen table and waited. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, scrolling through her phone with her other hand. "Morning," she said absently. She didn't look at me. "Who's Nate?" The question hung in the air. She froze mid-scroll. I watched her face cycle through expressions. Confusion, fear, calculation, and then, settling on one I hadn't expected, annoyance. "You went through my phone?" It buzzed. The message was on the screen. That's still an invasion of privacy. I took a sip of coffee. It was bitter. I'd forgotten the sugar. "Who is Nate, Meredith?" She set her phone down on the counter, crossed her arms. The annoyance hardened into defiance. "He's someone I've been talking to. It's not a big deal. The messages suggest otherwise." "What, you read them all?" She laughed. It was a cold sound. Nothing like the laugh I'd fallen in love with. "God, that's so pathetic. You actually sat there and read through my private conversations. You've been sleeping with him. And," the word hit me like a physical force. And, like I'd pointed out that she'd been buying a different brand of coffee. And, I repeated, "We're engaged." She walked to the refrigerator, pulled out a bottle of water, and took a long drink. Casual, unhurried, like we were discussing weekend plans. "Look," she said, leaning against the counter. "I was going to talk to you about this eventually. Things between us have been stale for a while. You know that. I know that. I met Nate at the Morrison Gala and we just clicked. It doesn't mean I don't care about you. You've been cheating on me for 3 months. I've been exploring my options." She said it like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "We're not married yet. I'm not going to limit myself when you're not exactly putting in maximum effort either." Maximum effort? I set my coffee cup down carefully. "I planned our anniversary for weeks. I tracked down your grandmother's bracelet. I've been trying to connect with you and you've been..." "Trying isn't the same as succeeding." She shrugged. "You're comfortable, Ethan. You're stable. But you're not exciting. You never have been. Nate makes me feel alive." I stared at her. This woman I'd loved for 4 years. This woman I'd planned to build a life with. She was looking at me like I was a mild inconvenience, an obstacle between her and her happiness. "So what's your plan?" I asked quietly. "Keep me around for the stability while you feel alive with Nate?" She smiled. Actually smiled. "I figured we'd have an open conversation about it eventually. Plenty of couples have arrangements. You're an adult. You could see other people too. It might actually be good for you. Help you loosen up." The audacity of it should have made me angry. Instead, I felt something else. Something colder. Clarity. I stood up from the table, picked up my coffee cup, walked to the sink and poured it out. "I want you out by the end of the week," I said. She laughed again. That same cold sound. "Don't be dramatic. We live together. We have a lease. The lease is in my name. You're listed as an occupant. And since I'm the one who's paid rent for the last year while you were building your savings, I don't think you want to have a legal conversation about this." Her smile faltered. "Ethan, come on. Let's talk about this like adults." We just did. I rinsed my cup, set it in the drying rack. "End of the week, Meredith. I'll leave boxes in the bedroom. You can't just..." "I can." I turned to face her. "And I am. You want to feel alive? Go feel alive somewhere else. I'm done being your safety net." I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. She was still standing in the kitchen when I left, mouth open, towel dripping onto the floor. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. She didn't think I was serious. That became clear over the next few days. She tried negotiation first. Soft touches on my arm. Lingering looks. "I ended things with Nate," she said Thursday night. Though I noticed she didn't offer to show me the proof. "It was a mistake. Let's go to counseling. We can fix this." I didn't engage. I just pointed at the empty boxes I'd left stacked in the corner of the bedroom. Then came anger. She screamed at me for an hour Friday morning. Called me cold. Called me rigid. Called me the reason she'd had to look elsewhere in the first place. "You don't make me feel wanted," she yelled, mascara running down her cheeks. "You don't make me feel beautiful. You just sit there with your blueprints and your spreadsheets and expect me to be grateful." I let her finish. Then I said, "The boxes are still in the corner." Saturday, she tried manipulation. She called her mother, sobbing, making sure I could hear every word about how I was throwing her away and abandoning her over nothing. Her mother called me directly. I didn't answer. She called my mother too. That conversation didn't go the way Meredith hoped. My mother had never warmed to her. "That girl has hungry eyes," she'd told me once. I hadn't understood what she meant until now. Sunday morning, I woke up to an empty apartment. She'd left in the night, taken her clothes, her shoes, her endless collection of skincare products. She'd also taken the vintage Cartier bracelet, the stand mixer I'd bought when I thought we'd learn to bake together, and the bottle of 20-year scotch my father had given me when I got my engineering license. She left the engagement ring on the kitchen counter. A final insult, like she was the one ending things. I picked it up, held it to the light. 2 months' salary, the old rule said. I followed it like an idiot. I dropped it in the junk drawer and made myself breakfast. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. Our mutual friends split down predictable lines. Her college roommates stopped responding to my messages. My work colleagues stopped asking about her. A few people who'd known us as a couple reached out awkwardly, not sure whose side to take. I didn't offer my side. I didn't post cryptic messages on social media. I didn't badmouth her to anyone who'd listen. I just continued. That's the thing about structural engineering. When a bridge fails, you don't waste time being angry at the concrete. You study the failure points. You learn what went wrong. You design better next time. I threw myself into work. There was a new project, a pedestrian bridge over a ravine in the city's East End. Complex terrain, challenging sight lines, the kind of problem that required every ounce of my focus. I started running again. I'd stopped during the relationship. Meredith thought it was boring, and her preferences had somehow become mine. Now I ran every morning at 5:30 a.m., watching the city wake up, feeling my lungs burn and my legs strengthen. I repainted the bedroom, got rid of the duvet she'd chosen, the throw pillows that served no purpose, the decorative objects that had cluttered every surface. The apartment became minimal, clean, mine. The silence, which I'd once dreaded, became something else. Space. Room to hear my own thoughts for the first time in years. 3 months after she left, I realized I hadn't thought about her in a week. Not once. She'd been the center of my universe, and now she was just data. A case study in what not to build next time. I heard about her from Marcus, a mutual friend who'd managed to stay neutral. We were grabbing drinks after a concert when he mentioned, almost reluctantly, that he'd run into her at a work event. "She's with that guy," Marcus said. "Nate. They moved in together. Good for her." I meant it, not sarcastically. I genuinely didn't care. "It's not going great, apparently." Marcus swirled his whiskey. "He's one of those guys who's all flash, no substance. Big plans, no follow-through. She's covering rent most months." I thought about Meredith's credit card debt, which I'd helped her pay down twice during our relationship. About her savings account that never seemed to grow no matter how much she earned. About her habit of living for the moment while expecting someone else to worry about the future. "She made her choice," I said. "She asked about you." I raised an eyebrow. "She wanted to know if you were seeing anyone." if you'd sold the apartment, if you ever mentioned her. What did you tell her? The truth, that you seem good. Better than I've ever seen you, actually. I finished my drink. I am good. Marcus studied me for a moment. You're not even a little angry? I thought about it. About the betrayal, the gaslighting, the months of being made to feel crazy for noticing what was right in front of my face. I admitted, for about a week. Then I realized that anger is just another way of staying connected to someone. I didn't want to give her that. That's surprisingly healthy. I've had time to think. She reached out 8 months later. A text from an unknown number that I almost deleted. Ethan, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I need to talk to you. Please, it's important. I stared at the message for a long time. The old me would have responded immediately, would have worried about what was wrong, whether she was okay, whether she needed help. The old me had been conditioned to solve her problems. I was not the old me anymore. I waited 3 days before responding. I'm free Saturday at 2 p.m. Coffee shop on Bleecker. Public place. 30 minutes. She agreed immediately. Too quickly. I recognized the desperation in those fast-typed responses. Saturday came. I arrived early, ordered a black coffee, and sat where I could see the door. 2:03 she walked in. The change was stark. She'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way. Her collarbones jutted sharply beneath her thin sweater. Her hair was shorter, darker, less carefully styled. The confidence that had once radiated from her like heat from pavement seemed to have dimmed to a flicker. She spotted me and smiled. It was her old smile, the one she'd used when she wanted something. You look amazing, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Seriously, have you been working out? What do you need, Meredith? The smile faltered. She'd expected small talk. Time to work up to whatever she'd come to ask. Right? Okay. Straight to business. She wrapped her hands around the coffee she hadn't ordered. I'm in trouble. What kind of trouble? Nate left. She said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. 6 weeks ago. Cleared out our account and took off. I'm 3 months behind on rent. My credit cards are maxed, and I got let go from the hotel last month. They said they were restructuring. But I know it's because I've been distracted, stressed, not performing. I listened. I didn't interrupt. My mom can't help. She's barely making it herself since the divorce. Meredith's eyes were wet now. I have nowhere to go. And I know I have no right to ask you anything after what I did. But I'm desperate. I need help. Even just a loan. I'll pay you back. I swear I'll pay you back. I took a sip of my coffee. It had gone lukewarm. How much? Hope flickered across her face. 8,000 would cover the back rent and give me enough to get back on my feet. I'd find a job. I'd get stable. And I'd pay you back every cent. $8,000. The cost of the engagement ring still sitting in my junk drawer. Funny how the numbers worked out. No, I said. The hope died. Ethan, please. I'm not asking you to take me back. I know that ship has sailed. I'm just asking for help. For old time's sake. For the 4 years we had together. Those 4 years are exactly why I'm saying no. She flinched. I spent 4 years building something with you, I continued. 4 years investing in a future that you decided wasn't exciting enough. 4 years being your safety net, your backup plan, your comfortable option. And the moment something shinier came along, you didn't even hesitate. I made a mistake. You made a choice. There's a difference. I leaned back in my chair. You chose Nate. You chose the affair. You chose to stand in our kitchen and tell me that I wasn't enough. That you deserved to explore your options while I waited around like some kind of consolation prize. I was wrong. Yes, you were. But being wrong doesn't create an obligation for me to fix your life. Tears were falling now. She didn't bother wiping them. So that's it? You're just going to watch me drown. You're not drowning, Meredith. You're facing the consequences of your decisions. There's a difference. I stood up, leaving a few bills on the table for my coffee. You're smart. You're capable. You'll figure it out. But you'll figure it out without me. You used to love me. The words stopped me. I looked down at her, this woman I'd planned to marry, reduced to begging in a coffee shop. I did, I said. And you used that love to make me feel small, to make me feel like wanting respect and loyalty was asking too much. You taught me that my love was worthless to you, and eventually, I believed it. That's not. But here's what I've learned since. I picked up my jacket from the back of the chair. My love wasn't worthless. It was just wasted on someone who couldn't recognize its value. I won't make that mistake again. I walked toward the door. Ethan. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I paused with my hand on the door. I believe you, I said without turning around. But sorry doesn't rebuild a bridge after you've burned it down. You just have to find another way across. I stepped out into the afternoon sun. The air was crisp, clean, full of possibility. Behind me, I heard her crying. I didn't look back. A year later, I stood on the pedestrian bridge I'd helped design. The grand opening was the following week, but I'd gotten special permission to walk across it alone. Just once, before the crowds came. The ravine spread out below me, a ribbon of green cutting through the urban landscape. The bridge was elegant, efficient, a perfect marriage of form and function. Every cable, every beam, every bolt was exactly where it needed to be. My phone buzzed. A text from someone I'd been seeing for the past 4 months. Rachel, a veterinarian with a dry sense of humor and a golden retriever named Chairman Meow, which made no sense, which was exactly why I liked it. Dinner at my place tonight? I'm attempting risotto. Pray for me. I smiled and typed back. I'll bring wine. And backup pizza just in case. Your faith in me is inspiring. I have faith. I also have realistic expectations. This is why we work. I pocketed my phone and looked out over the ravine. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Below, the walking paths were full of joggers and cyclists, families and couples, all of them trusting the ground beneath their feet to hold. That was the thing about bridges. You didn't think about them when they were working. You just walked across, confident that someone had done the math, that someone had measured the load-bearing capacity and calculated the stress points and reinforced the weak spots. But the bridge only worked if the foundation was solid, if the materials were sound, if the design accounted for reality rather than wishful thinking. I'd spent years trying to engineer a relationship that was built on sand, trying to reinforce a structure that someone else was actively undermining. I'd blamed myself when it collapsed, as if better calculations could have saved it. But some structures can't be saved. Some foundations are too flawed from the start. The kindest thing you can do is recognize the failure, clear the rubble, and build something new. I walked across my bridge, feeling the solid concrete beneath my feet, listening to the cables hum in the wind. Everything held. Everything worked. I was finally on the other side. Sometimes I think about Meredith. Not often. Not with longing. Just occasionally, the way you might think about a project that didn't pan out, a path not taken. I heard through Marcus that she eventually moved back in with her mother, got a job at a smaller events company, started dating someone new, a perfectly nice guy by all accounts. Maybe she'd learned something. Maybe she hadn't. It wasn't my concern anymore. The last time I saw her was purely by accident. I was leaving a restaurant with Rachel, our hands intertwined, laughing about something stupid one of her coworkers had said. Meredith was walking in with a group of friends. Our eyes met, just for a second. She looked surprised, then sad, then something else, recognition maybe of what she'd thrown away. I nodded politely. She nodded back. And then I turned to Rachel, held the door for her, and walked out into the night. The past was behind me. The foundation beneath my feet was solid. And for the first time in years, I was building something worth keeping. Author's note. If you're in a relationship where you're made to feel crazy for wanting basic respect, where your concerns are dismissed as insecurity, where you're told that your discomfort with boundary violations is your problem to solve, trust yourself. The math doesn't lie. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away from a structure that's designed to collapse.